Hello and welcome to episode 3 of What Hannah Knits. Today I have a regular episode for you where we are going to be talking about my finished objects, my current works in progress, and also I do have one acquisition to talk to you about today. So if you haven't already, grab a nice drink. I've got a nice herbal tea today. Maybe grab a knitting project so that we can sit together and talk about my knitting for a while. I'm going to start by very quickly talking about what I am wearing today. This is the college loop cardigan and it is a design by Other Loops. So it is quite oversized. It is of course a V-neck cardigan with these striped details on the ribbing for the cuff and the hem, and the construction is a saddle shoulder construction, and I modified mine to have a double knitted button band rather than the ribbed button band that is written into the pattern. This is knit up at a worsted weight, and the yarn that the designer uses is a DK weight strand held with a lace weight mohair strand. For mine, I have used a DK weight British wool strand for this main creamy colour. We will talk more about that yarn later because I have used that in one of my finished objects. And I held that with a Drops Kid Silk mohair in the colour Marzipan. For the contrast stripe colour, I used some leftovers from another project, and the DK weight strand is by West Yorkshire Spinners and it is their illustrious DK in the colour Pewter. This has sadly been discontinued in that particular colourway, and I did hold that with another Drops Kid Silk mohair and that is in the colour Beige. And although it is called beige, it does lean very grey, so it works quite well together. So let's jump straight in with my finished objects. The first finished object that I have to speak about today is my cardigan number 9. So here she is. Hopefully this lighting is okay. We are strangely having lots of sunshine in the UK at the moment, so it's a lovely problem to have, but the lighting through this window is quite dappled, so hopefully this is okay. Certainly wouldn't want to complain about the sun when it's usually grey here. So this is a design by My Favourite Things Knitwear, and it of course is a saddle shoulder construction. So if we just have a look at the back here, you start with these saddle shoulder portions, so these are both knit separately. If I remember rightly, you then pick up stitches off of each shoulder portion for the back, and of course form the back neck here, and you then pick up stitches from the front as well from each shoulder, and then of course you are then making increases for the sleeves and knitting back and forth for the body. I think I'm remembering that construction correctly. I cast this on at the end of December in that weird time between Christmas and New Year, and it just seems like so long ago now. So with the construction of this one, when you're getting started with the yoke portion and the saddle shoulders, there's lots of stopping and starting. And it does mean that there are lots of ends to weave in as well. I am someone that really dislikes weaving in ends. However, with that being said, I do think that the way this is constructed is worth it for the final fit and look of the garment. So if you're like me and you are somebody that doesn't like weaving in ends, I wouldn't let that put you off, because it really is worth it and it wouldn't put me off knitting this again. So this of course is finished with 1x1 ribbed details. And another detail that I really enjoy is the section of double knitting here around the collar. So you knit that just before you start knitting the rib for the collar. And as well as giving the collar some really nice structure, it's a really nice detail as well, so I really enjoy that. The other thing that I love about this garment is it has lots and lots of short row shaping. So it has short row shaping on the back, there's also a little bit around the front here, and you have short row shaping here on the sleeve caps, and it just gives a really, really nice fit. So I will insert some footage of this on so that you can see how it looks. I knit the first size in this. I can't remember exactly what the circumference for the body should be for the first size, but my measurements of my garment do match that. And I will pop my bust circumference in the description box below in case anybody is interested, just for reference. I cropped mine ever so slightly versus what the pattern recommends, and that is just because I am on the shorter side, so I am 5'2", so I do tend to crop all of my garments just a little bit, just to give me a better fit for my body. All in all, I absolutely love this, absolutely love the look of it. So let's speak about the yarn. So this is knit up at a Aran weight gauge. So in the pattern, the designer uses a DK to worsted weight strand held with a lace weight mohair strand. And the gauge is 16 stitches per 10 inches. So quite a nice big gauge. So it knits up quite quickly. So the yarn that I used for the main strand is a DK weight British wool strand. I've spoken about this before, but I'll briefly cover it again. So I purchased this from eBay, from a D-stash, and I purchased 3 huge hanks of this yarn, and each hank had just over 500 grams. So I had just over 1,500 grams of this yarn. There was very minimal information that came with the yarn, other than that it is a DK weight and it is 100% British wool, and the original invoice was from a company that is just called British Wool. But I haven't been able to find this particular yarn anywhere online, so I haven't got any information about the meterage of the yarn or the exact composition, you know, so the breeds of the sheep. It is just 100% British wool, and it is in a really creamy colour, and it sort of appears to be undyed. I'm not sure, but I would say that it is undyed because it's a very creamy sheepy colour. So that is the main strand that I used for this, and then I also held that with a Knitting for Olive mohair, so the soft silk mohair, and that is in the colour fennel seed. So if I hold this up a little bit closer, hopefully you can just see that there is some marling to the fabric. So the cream is a very yellow based cream, and then the fennel seed is quite a yellow based green colour. So I think they work really well together. They do give a marl, which I really, really enjoy. It's quite subtle, and from afar it just looks like a very, very pastel greeny yellow colour, which may not be to everybody's taste, but I really, really love this. So I have been trying not to wear it too much because I wanted to keep it nice so that I could show it on here. But I have worn it a few times already because I couldn't resist. But now that it's been shown on here, I think I'm going to be reaching for this one quite a lot. Next up, for my finished objects, I have another garment, and this is my loose sweater. And this is a pattern by the Knit Pearl Girl, and this was a test knit. And this was actually my first ever test knitting experience. As I'm filming this, the pattern was released yesterday, So once this video goes live, this pattern will be available for you to purchase. So this is a compound raglan construction. So you increase for the body and sleeves at a different rate, and it just allows you to get a bit of a better fit. And I do really enjoy the fit on this one. If I hold it up a little bit closer, you can see there that it has this really lovely texture on the top half of the body and also on the sleeves. And this is just made up by slipped stitches and pearls. So it's really easy to execute, but it gives a really lovely look. It has these really wide raglan portions here. Then of course you have the really pretty details that are on the sleeves and the bottom of the body. So you have a little portion of the texture pattern, and it has some lateral braids and eyelet details, and also eyelet details here on the collar. This is knit up at a DK weight gauge. So the sample that the designer had knitted was knit in a fingering weight yarn held with a lace weight mohair. I had some issues with my gauge in that my gauge swatch had lied to me, and I didn't realise until it was too late. I do have a project vlog all about the process of me knitting up this sweater and my first ever test knit experience, and I go into lots of detail about my issues with the gauge, and of course also the process from start to finish of me knitting this garment. So I won't go into too much detail because you can head over there if you would like to hear all the details about this one. But I will speak about the yarn very quickly. So I knit this in Drops Kid Silk Mohair, and that is in the colour light beige. And I held that together with Drops Flora, and that is in the colour white fog. And the Flora is a wool alpaca blend, and then of course you do have the silk in the Kid Silk Mohair, so you get a really lovely drape to this, and hopefully you can see that, and it feels lovely and light and airy. The fabric, I really enjoy how it looks. However, I am getting those little fuzzies that I have to keep pulling off. I think that's just par for the course with a softer yarn that has alpaca content, so I don't mind too much. I just will sort of pick them off as I'm wearing it, but I think the mohair does really help to stop a lot of that pilling. Again, I have been trying to put off wearing this so that I could show it in this episode, but I have wore this quite a lot already because I really enjoy how this one looks. Because my gauge was off, it did end up being bigger than it should have been. So I knit the second size, and I should have a little bit less ease than what I ended up with. However, I do prefer more ease in my garments. I do prefer the oversized look. So I actually really enjoy how this fits me. So although it was a little bit annoying with the gauge because it was a test knit, this actually worked out in my favour because I really like how it fits me. My next finished object is a beanie hat. Here it is. And this is from the Winter Essentials set by Suzanne Muller. So the set contains the pattern for, of course, the hat. She also includes instructions for some mittens. You can either knit them full length or fingerless. And it also includes instructions for a neck warmer. All of the items in the pattern are knit in this 2x2 rib, and the pattern includes instructions for this neat method of casting on in the 2x2 rib as well, so you get a really nice neat finish here. So I'll just unfurl it. I haven't woven in this end here, so you'll have to try to ignore that. But as you can see, you cast on here and you do just knit all the way up until you decrease at the crown. So this was a bit of a slog to knit because once you get past that cast on section, you are just knitting miles and miles and miles of 2x2 rib on 3mm needles. So it's taken me quite a while to get through this because it just wasn't the most interesting thing to knit on. The weather is also starting to turn here now, so we are very much feeling like a spring in the UK. The weather's getting warmer, so I wasn't particularly motivated because we're moving out of beanie weather now. I do very much want to knit the entire set, and I have the yarn to knit the other items. However, I'll probably get to that when the weather gets colder again in the autumn time. I knit this in the recommended yarn, which is Filcolana Arwetta. So here is a fresh ball of the yarn. This is actually a sock yarn, so it is 80% virgin wool and 20% nylon, and you get 210 meters in a 50-gram ball. And I knit mine in the colour 140, bit of my hair there, and it's a burgundy red colour, which is pushing the boat out a little bit for me colour-wise, but I have a lot of neutral accessories. No, a lot of neutral outerwear, so I'm hoping that a pop of colour in my accessories will be really nice and a really easy way for me to incorporate some more colour into my wardrobe. And it is a superwash yarn, of course, with it being a sock yarn. So you hold the yarn double for this one to get around a DK weight gauge. So out of two balls, this is what I have left. So I used just under 100 grams to get this beanie. And I knit this in the second size. There are 3 sizes for the beanie, I believe, that just go on head circumference. I was too lazy to measure my head circumference when I was casting this on, so I just took a risk with the second size and it does fit. Maybe I can pop this on. It might mess up my hair. But, oh, that looks really strange. But you can get an idea of what that looks like there. Okay. My hair's a little bit dishevelled now, but let's just carry on. I have 2 more finished objects and they are both socks. So the first pair are these, a bit of a running theme. I haven't woven in the ends on this one, but I did on this one. I obviously lost motivation there. So let's hold up this one because it looks a lot nicer. It has been washed and blocked, but I just didn't get around to the ends on the second sock. This is a DK weight sock and I didn't use a pattern for this. I just cast on 68 stitches and worked a little bit of 2x2 rib. I then went into a 3x1 broken ribbed stitch pattern. I did a slipped stitch, heel flap and gusset, which is my favourite heel construction. Of course, just knit the foot with plain stockinette on the bottom, the broken rib pattern here as well, and then I just did a wedged toe, which is my favourite construction for a toe. So nice and simple, and these are very much needed because our house can be quite cold, especially on the floors. It's an older property and we get lots of drafts coming up from underneath those floorboards, which can be quite chilly on the feet. And then in our kitchen and utility room areas, we have like tiled floor that is extremely cold. If you've ever stood on that specific type of tiled floor on a cold morning with bare feet, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. So even through the summer, we very much need to wear woolly socks in this house to keep our feet warm. So these are very much needed. So I need to get around to weaving in the ends on that second sock. The yarn that I used for these is Drops Fiesta, and it's a new-ish yarn for Drops, and it is a DK weight sock yarn, and it is a wool nylon blend superwash yarn. I can't remember the names of the shades that I used for these, and I don't have them with me, but I will pop them up on the screen so that you can see the names of the shades. The final finished object that I do have is another pair of socks. These were not actually a work in progress in my last video because these were a gift for my partner, and he does watch these, so I didn't want to show them on here in case he was watching and it ruined the surprise. These socks were knit from a free pattern. It's a free download on Ravelry, and it is the Broken Record Broken Rib socks. And I knit this exact pattern last year for his birthday as well, and because of the ribbing they just fit really well, so I decided to knit another pair for him. I do modify the stitch count for this pattern, so the best fit for him is a 68 stitch circumference. So I cast on 68 stitches. I've then done 2x2 ribbing rather than the 1x1 that is recommended in the pattern. I've used the broken ribbed stitch pattern that is written into the pattern. However, this time I added in some stripes. So if you are interested in exactly how I did this, it's very simple, but on the Ravelry page for this, I listed exactly the number of rows for each stripe. I have then done a slipped stitch, heel flap and gusset, and I use an online calculator to calculate how to knit the heel turn, with it being a 68 stitch count. That number of stitches for the heel turn isn't written into the pattern. Again, I have listed all of that in the Ravelry page for these, so if you're interested in accessing that heel turn calculator, that is all on the Ravelry page for these. For these socks, I used two different sock yarns. The first yarn, now this is looking very battered and beaten up. Again, I had purchased this from eBay, and it is Sunbeam St. Ives, and it is an 80% wool, 20% nylon 4-ply yarn, and it is superwash treated. So this is what it looks like, and it is a sort of very dimensional grey that's slightly marled. I don't believe this yarn is available for sale anymore. I think it's quite old, and you do get 182 meters per 50-gram ball. I think because the meterage is a little bit lower than what you would usually expect for a 4-ply yarn, it is a little bit thicker as well, so it's maybe leaning more towards a sport weight than a standard fingering weight yarn. And these do knit up at a denser fabric. So I knit these on a 2.5mm needle, I should say as well. So they've knit up at a really, really nice dense fabric. For the stripes, I used some of this. This is the Opal 4-ply, and it is Opal's standard sock yarn. I can't remember. Oh, there's a needle for weaving in ends stuck inside there. Let's remove that. Don't know what that's doing. But it is their sort of off-white creamy colour. So he really, really likes these. I've been trying to keep him from wearing them so that I could show them on here. So he will very much be getting lots of wear out of these. As I mentioned, we do need woolly socks in this house to keep our feet warm. So he will probably be getting lots of wear out of these now that I can give them back to him. Okay, let's move on to my works in progress. And all of the works in progress that I have today are all new cast-ons that I haven't spoken about before. And I've got some really, really exciting things on the needles at the minute. I'm feeling really inspired by my current projects. So I'm going to start with the one that I am the most excited about. It's going to be a little bit difficult to show. This is the front. Let's hold up the back because there's a little bit more going on in the back at the moment. So you may recognise this pattern from these really distinctive heart-shaped cables. This is the Heart Chain Sweater from Mayo. And it is a really, really beautiful all over cabled design that has these heart-shaped cables here. And it's really pretty. So it is a top-down construction, and it is a dropped shoulder sweater. So it's a standard dropped shoulder construction where you cast on stitches across the back and you do work some short rows to get that shoulder sloping. And of course you knit down for the back panel, and I've finished the back panel. These stitches are just sitting on hold. You then pick up stitches across the fronts. So this portion here is sitting on hold at the moment. So you knit down to shape the front neck and you work some increases to create the shaping around the neck here. And I am now working on the second front piece as well. Once that's done, you cast on stitches across the front to form the front neck. You then knit down, and then I will be joining in the round. So very exciting. This is very much taking up lots of my knitting time because I'm finding it hard to put it down. It's very addictive. It is knit at a worsted weight gauge. So the sample was knit in a 5.5mm needle. I've gone down to 5mm, but it knits up really quickly because it is at that slightly heavier gauge. I'm always surprised by how quickly things fly by on a 5mm, even when it's all over cabled like this. So this pattern so far I am really, really enjoying. It's a fabulous pattern. It's really, really well written. However, one thing that I would bear in mind if you are interested in knitting this isn't a pattern that holds your hand. There's not a lot of extra fluff included. I really don't mind that because sometimes I feel that I don't need all of that extra fluff and that hand holding, and sometimes when there's pages and pages of text to get through, it can feel like every time you need to refer back to the pattern, you're having to swipe through all of those pages to figure out where you were. So I quite enjoy that about this pattern. However, I would say that because of that, this wouldn't be suitable for beginners. The other thing to bear in mind with this one is the cable patterns are completely charted. So there is very minimal written instructions in terms of the cables themselves. Again, I don't mind that. I really enjoy working from a chart. I will print the chart off, and then I have a magnetic bookmark that I just move up through the rows so I know exactly where I am, and it makes it really easy to pick it back up. So I quite like working from a chart. However, it's not like some other cable sweaters that I've worked before where they have the pattern charted and written out. Because these cables are so intricate, and of course, you know, with the love hearts, they're moving in different directions all the time, I don't know if it would even be possible to write this out as written instructions. And if you did, it would just be pages and pages. So really, for me, charting this is the best way to do it. But it's one to bear in mind. I know some people really don't like working from charts and prefer written instructions. So bear that in mind if you are interested in knitting this sweater. I'm knitting this in the 3rd size. The pattern recommends around 12 to 24 centimetres of positive ease, if I'm remembering that correctly. I'm going up a size because I really want this to be really oversized. I've got a specific vision for this in my mind, so I'm hoping that this is going to relax up quite a bit when I block it, because it's not looking quite as oversized as I would have hoped. The gauge for this one is given in stockinette and also in the cable stitch pattern. So once you purchase the pattern, there is a little section which it advises you to knit up for the cables to measure your gauge. So the gauge is 18 stitches per 10 centimetres for stockinette stitch, which I am hitting with the 5mm needle. For the cabled pattern, it's this little pattern here with the heart that the gauge swatch encompasses. And for the gauge swatch that she has you knit up, she advises that you would have 36 stitches per 10 centimetres. I find it really hard to measure stitches, stitch gauge in cables, because it can vary. If you're measuring sort of this section here where there's lots of crosses, obviously that's all going to sit a lot tighter. But this section here, where it's the purls in between the cables, will sit a lot looser. So I think I'm hitting the gauge, but if anything, I may be slightly tighter than what's recommended, which is another reason why I decided to go for the 3rd size. And I'm quite glad that I did, because it is looking smaller than I would have expected. But the other thing to bear in mind with cables is this will really grow as everything relaxes out when it is blocked. So we shall see. I'm hoping for very oversized, so let's see how this turns out. So the yarn that I am using for this project, this is the yarn. This is quite a random find. So I purchased this from a motorway service station here in the UK, and it is called Gloucester Farm Services. If you are in the UK, you may have heard of this. There was a documentary series on the TV about it at one point, I believe, as well. If you haven't heard of it, you need to research it, and if you can, factor it in to your next road trip. This services is not like any motorway services you will have ever been to before. As the name suggests, it is a farm shop, and it is just out of this world. Like, it is absolutely incredible. We travel to Cornwall once a year for a holiday, and we always stop at Gloucester Farm Services, and it is one of my favourite parts of the holiday. So last year we were doing our regular stop off on the way to Cornwall. I was looking around the farm shop and I spotted the yarn section, and they have lots of We Are Knitters yarn. I was having a little look, nothing that really took my fancy, and then I saw this. And you can see here it's labelled Westmoreland Farm Shop, which is the name of the brand for the service station, and it just says yarn spun in West Yorkshire with wool from our own upland sheep, and it is 200 metres and it is labelled as a DK, and that is all the information that you get on the ball band. So it appears to me to be undyed because it's a very natural sheepy colour, and it feels very rustic and sheepy, which I personally really enjoy. There's nothing better than a rustic sheepy yarn to me, and it does have that sheepy smell, which I like. I know some people don't like it, but I quite enjoy it. It reminds me of pear gynt because it's very much a heavy DK weight, more like a worsted, I would say. And I think, sorry, I've got my hair on it. I think this is more rustic than a pear gynt, which I don't mind. I really like a rustic yarn, but it definitely is not for those that are sensitive to wool. The other thing that really surprised me with this yarn is the price. When I saw it, it didn't have a price on it. So I thought, spun from their own sheep, you know, it's a small batch of yarn in a farm shop. This is going to be really, really expensive. It turned out to be £5.50 per ball for 100 grams. I just could not believe that for 100% British wool spun from their own sheep. So I purchased 6 balls of this, and I have major regret for not buying more. Now that I've started knitting with it, it just knits up so beautifully. This yarn was absolutely made for cables. I purchased 600 grams of it with a cabled sweater in mind. It's so springy and just knits up so beautifully and crisp in this cable pattern. So I'm absolutely loving this, absolutely loving this yarn. If we end up going to Cornwall again this year, which we probably will, we will for sure be stopping off at the farm services, and I will be hunting this yarn down because I want to get some more. So fingers crossed they have produced some more, because I will be buying more of this yarn for sure. If you're from the UK and you have ever visited the farm services in Gloucester, let me know, and let me know if you love it as much as I do. Next up, I have my Amy sweater. This is quite difficult to show because I've got a lot of different needles attached to it at the moment. This is a pattern by Petite Knit, a very popular pattern by a very popular designer, so you most probably have heard about this one. But it is a top-down raglan construction, and it has a 2x2 ribbed turtleneck. And once you get to the end of the turtleneck, it has a rolled stockinette edge, and it has the rolled stockinette edge on the body, and I believe on the cuffs as well, when I of course get to that. So this is of course constructed from the top down. You actually knit the first portion flat to form this nice shaping around the neck before joining in the round, and it is just a standard raglan construction. As you can see, I am midway through knitting the body here, and I had just got to the end of a skein, and what I wanted to do was actually add in the neck before I continued on the body, just to get an idea of how everything's going to look and how it will sit. So this is really hard to hold up, but I'm knitting the neck on my DPNs. That's just my preferred method. And it is in 2x2 rib. I feel like I've been knitting this neck for so long. It's taking forever. It's just an absolute mountain of 2x2 rib. There's a certain amount of centimetres that you have to knit it to, and every time I measure it, I feel like it isn't growing. It's just taking forever. I'm really not enjoying knitting this neck. Before I had picked up and started doing the neck, I was absolutely flying through the body. It's knit on 4mm needles at a DK weight gauge, which is probably my favourite needle size and gauge to knit at. It's probably where I can knit the quickest, and of course it's just completely plain stockinette. So I was flying through, and I thought that I was going to have this finished for the last little bit of cold weather in the UK, but now it's probably going to be something that I will wear next winter, because spring is very much arriving here in the UK. So I don't think there's much else to cover about the pattern in particular. It is a very basic pattern, and it's a very popular one that's talked about a lot. But I will speak about the yarn. This is the yarn that I'm using. So I'm knitting this in pure gynt. There's a, don't know what that is. This is the recommended yarn for the pattern, and it is a DK weight yarn, which leans more towards a heavy DK to worsted weight. And you do get, 91 meters. I knew it was around 91 meters per 50 grams. This is a tweed yarn, so it's one of their tweed colorways. Actually, I'll hold this up so you can see a little bit better how it looks when it's knit up. But it's a grey base and it has these tweedy flecks in burgundy, purpley colours. There's a mustard yellow in there and some really deep chocolate browns. And I'm really enjoying how this is knitting up. Gynt is one of my favourite yarns. I know some people find this very scratchy. I am not sensitive to wool, so I find that I can wear this next to skin with just a t-shirt. And it is extremely warm because it is a Norwegian wool. And it gets very cold here in the UK, and I am a very cold person in general. I tend to really feel the cold, so I absolutely love wearing really warm rustic yarns like this. So I'm really enjoying this. I know this will be something that I wear a lot once I get it finished, once I can get through this neck. But it may be something that I end up wearing more in the coming autumn and winter. That being said, the weather in the UK loves to surprise us. It's sunny now, but you never know, it could snow next week and I may want this. So we shall see, but it's more than likely something that I will wear in our next winter when it gets cold again. My next work in progress is a gift knit, and this is going to be a birthday present for my godson. I know that his mummy watches these videos with him, so if you are watching, you need to skip this next section, please. So here it is, so cute. This is the Lyon sweater, I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's the junior Lyon sweater by Petite Knit. There's quite a lot of ends going on, so I do apologise. It's looking pretty messy. But here it is. So this is another top-down construction, but you actually start with, let me remember. You actually start with the shoulder sections here, and then it has a contiguous sleeve construction, which gives it a really tailored look, and it has these lovely details on the shoulders as well. It's very cute. And then it is of course knit in stripes all over. I'm knitting this in the first size, which is for 1 to 2 years. So it's going to be his first birthday. So hopefully this will be a good size for him. So as you can see, I am working my way through the body, and then I do need to pick up the sleeves and the neck as well. I need to get going on this because it actually is about a week, just over a week until his birthday. So I need to get a wriggle on and get this one finished. I'm hoping it shouldn't take me too long because it is a baby / toddler knit. They just knit up so quickly. Let's talk about the yarn that I am using. This is one of my favourite yarns to use for baby and toddler knits. Firstly, because it is so widely available in the UK and it is quite a nice price point. It's not too expensive. It also has a nice colour selection and it is nice and soft, and it is superwash, which is my preference if I'm gifting something for a baby. So this is the Merino Blend DK by King Cole. It is a superwash wool. It is marketed as anti-tickle. And it's just marketed as 100% pure new wool. And then it does say it's a merino blend. So I don't know how much merino is in there, but it is certainly very soft. You get 104 meters per 50 grams for this yarn. So the shade names I am using, this is the shade Oatmeal, and it's a beigey creamy colour, which has a lot of dimension to it. And Then I'm not holding it with, I'm using for the stripes, sorry, this colour, and this is Sage. And it's a very sagey green colour, and it's just a flat colour. There's no dimension to that one. But I think they look really cute together, and hopefully he will like it. Hopefully his mum will like it. He is a very knit-worthy little boy, and he gets lots and lots of wear out of his knitwear. So I always enjoy knitting something for him. My final work in progress is a pair of socks. And here it is. These are part of the afternoon tea sock set by a designer called Carly Perrins. And in this set, you receive instructions for 3 types of socks. And once I purchased the pattern, I was pleasantly surprised, because what the designer does is she actually breaks it down into 3 types of cuff. So there is a ruffle cuff, a twisted rib cuff, and a picot edge folded cuff. And she then breaks down 3 different stitch patterns, so 3 different types of socks. So you can mix and match the cuffs with the socks to create your own afternoon tea sock, which is so cute. So the sock that I am knitting is the cake and pastry sock, and here is the stitch pattern. It is a cabled stitch pattern, so it's quite tricky to see there. There we go, that's a little better. So it's cabled and it has eyelet details as well, really, really pretty. In the sample picture for this particular sock, the designer has knit it quite short, so that's what I wanted to do. I want this to be quite a short sock so that I can wear it in the summer, maybe with Birkenstocks, or maybe even with little white trainers would be quite cute. And I am doing the ruffle cuff for this one. So for the ruffle cuff, you knit a folded 1x1 ribbed cuff. So this is knit down, and it's a double thickness, of course, fabric. I was quite worried that that would look quite bulky, but actually it doesn't. It's nice and stretchy. Once you completely finish the sock is when you pick the stitches back up to knit the ruffle, which I'm so excited about. So I have just this morning finished the slipped stitch heel flap, which is what is written into the pattern. I'm going to work the heel turn next, and then of course we'll be moving into the foot. So this is knitting up quite quickly because I've knit the legs so short, and I'm quite excited to have these finished. The yarn that I am using is by West Yorkshire Spinners. This is their signature sock yarn, and this is in the colour Cayenne Pepper, and it's a very bright red for me. It's very out there. I've seen lots of pictures on Pinterest and Instagram of people styling quite neutral outfits with bright red socks. So that was my inspiration for this one. So very exciting. I should also mention that I'm knitting this on 2.25mm needles, which is my preferred needle size for my socks. And it is a 64 stitch circumference, so I just find that that gives me the best fit. So that rounds up all of my current works in progress. Lots of exciting projects at the moment. So finally, I do have one acquisition. I'm trying my hardest not to purchase yarn at the moment because I do have quite a lot in stash, or at least for me anyway. It's probably not a lot compared to some people's, but I have quite a lot, and it is overspilling from the area that I store it. So I can't really be getting too much more yarn until I've got some out of stash. However, I love to shop secondhand for my yarn. I'm always looking in local charity shops or thrift stores. And I love to look on eBay in particular for people that are destashing their yarn. And as I've touched on a little bit earlier, I really like rustic yarns, and I really like to look for yarns that are produced in the UK, because I like to use yarns that have come from local sheep and local breeds if I can. And obviously it is much more sustainable if I can source yarns that are produced here in the UK. So I found somebody selling this yarn on eBay that I just had to purchase because I was so excited about it. I'm going to hold this up just to show you. I'm really sorry if it is rustling a little bit, but this is how it came. So it was obviously packaged up in a mailing bag, but this is the bag that it came in. So this is the name of the company, Swaledale Woolens, and they are based in North Yorkshire. And I will try to show you what's inside here without it rustling too much. So I'll probably cut out some of the bits where it's going to rustle. First of all, they popped in the leaflet. So this is the business that the yarn has come from. I should say that the yarn, I didn't purchase it from the business. It was from somebody that had purchased this yarn and then obviously decided that they weren't going to use it. But they popped this in there for me. So this is the business. It's Swaledale Woolens, and it is in a village called Muker in Swaledale in North Yorkshire. And there's lots in here, but basically it tells you a little about where the wool comes from. So it comes from local sheep, and then it is sent to a mill in southern Scotland for washing and combing before spinning. And then of course it comes back to the shop where they sell the yarn. And they also sell finished garments that are made out of their yarn as well. You can see in there. It just seems like a very quaint little village and such a lovely business. And we are actually planning a trip this summer to Cumbria and the Lake District, and this place is very nearby. I've done a little Google. They are very much still in business and very much still selling their yarn. So if we do end up taking that trip, I will 100% be visiting here and probably purchasing some more of this yarn. So let's look at the actual yarn. So it comes like this, and you can see this has been completely untouched by whoever had originally purchased this. So let's take out a ball. So here is what the yarn looks like. I have 10 balls of this, and each of these has 50 grams. There isn't any information about meterage or even the weight of the yarn, but the seller did advertise the yarn as a DK weight, and if we have a look at the strand, oops, it does appear to be around a DK weight, and it is just 2 plies quite loosely plied together, and it does feel quite rustic. I think I'm quite blind to rustic yarns because that feels quite soft to me, but I know if I put that on my partner's neck, he would say that that's scratchy. So it's probably quite rustic. With it being quite loosely plied, I think what I want to do when I do knit this up is hold it with a silk mohair just to give it a little more, what's the word? Just to help it hold up a little bit more, because I don't want it to pill too much. But it's a really beautiful sort of purpley blue colour, and the colour is iris. It's quite an out there colour for me, but I do think that blue suits my complexion, so I'm really looking forward to knitting something up with this. I think I would like to do a V-neck sweater with this. I want to hold it with a mohair in a similar colour, maybe a knitting for olive mohair because they've got quite a good shade range, and a V-neck sweater is what I'm thinking. So if you have any pattern recommendations for a sort of worsted weight a worsted weight V-neck sweater, let me know down below, because I haven't decided what I want to do with this yet, but I'm so excited about it. And yes, hopefully we will get to visit this place in person when we take our trip in the summer, and I will probably purchase some more yarn. Okay, so that is everything from me today. Quite a lot to get through, lots of exciting bits and pieces. If you have reached it to this stage, thank you so much for watching. As always, I really enjoy hearing your comments and interacting in the comments below. I've been able to chat to people from all over the world through doing these videos, which I always find so exciting. So I would love to chat with you below. Thank you for watching. Bye.